New Yorkers recently elected Mayor Eric Adams, a former cop, amid a city crime wave. This week, a woman fatally stabbed in her apartment building after being followed into her building. The suspect was out on bail, been arrested at least 4 times in the past year. It's the latest in a string of random attacks committed by the mentally ill. The building's landlord lashing out at lax crime policies, and an assertion by New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that the crime spike was due not to bail reform or other issues, but the end of the child tax credit. Brian Chin called the remarks unbelievably naive and completely irresponsible. When recently asked about city crime, Mayor Adams answered instead by unloading on the media and race.
I'm a black man, that's the mayor. But my story has been interpreted by people that don't look like me. How many blacks are in the editorial boards? Everybody talks about my government being diversified. What's the diversification in the newsrooms?
Democratic strategist Kristal Knight and Patriot Academy founder Rick Green join us now. Kristal, auto thefts up more than 100%, 109% in New York so far this year. We know crime is the issue in New York. Why is the mayor asking about diversity in local newsrooms?
Yeah, I think what the mayor was doing was pivoting from the real, issues at hand. I absolutely believe that, he has to address that. And I think there is something to be said about the diversification in newsrooms, in media in general. But he did not stick on topic. Instead, he took the attacks as personal. And he has to understand that when you sign up to be the mayor of a big city like New York, everything is going to come at you because you're the executive, and that's the role that you signed up for.
Exactly. And it's probably why he was elected, Rick, which I think a lot of people want to hear from him on crime. Take care of crime. Why shift, in your opinion, to this?
Yeah, I mean, first I want to congratulate the mayor and thank him for the focus on crime and reversing these horrible policies of defunding and demeaning the police and letting criminals out because of COVID and not prosecuting crime. I mean, the very predictable result of that was a massive increase in every area of crime. So he's absolutely right to increase the police presence and back the blue. I think he's getting distracted by 2 things. Number one, the kind of myopic focus on guns whenever 92% of violent crimes are not committed with a crime. So whether it's a bat or a knife or gun or whatever it is, let's go after the criminal, not the inanimate object. And then number 2, just don't get into this race baiting. It demeans the whole process. I mean, I just think it's a shame. We should actually be focusing on the criminal regardless of color of skin. And listen, if you say that you can only get fair reporting from someone of the same skin color, then you're being a racist. So I really think he's getting distracted by this. I think if he'll get back to saying, hey, we're going after crime, I don't care what the color of the perp is, I don't care what the color of the skin of the victim is, we're going after crime. If he'll do that, he'll be a hero to all of his constituents and the rest of us outside of New York as well.
Kristal, I guess politically, why wouldn't he maybe blame the state politicians in Albany? Because that's where this all started. He went there to try to talk to them, to try to get them to at least change or maybe walk back some of the reforms that they've passed, and he didn't get anywhere. Why not maybe point that out instead of taking on the media?
Yeah, I mean, he probably didn't point it out because he wasn't successful. I mean, it stated, in the article that the speaker, the leader in the House and the Senate in New York are both African Americans, and so that's something that he wanted to highlight. Again, bringing in race to the conversation, but ultimately his push for, turning back, these policing reforms, they failed in Albany, and that's something that he has to accept. He has to accept these small defeats and think about his bigger wins in the future. But I think pivoting about race in this instance, it really did not add anything to the conversation about the rising levels of crime and this horrific attack that happened to this Asian woman over the weekend. And so that's something, again, that I think the media will pivot back to and say, we were here to talk about crime and you were here to talk about race.
All right, well, this was not the issue we thought you guys were going to agree on, but it's nice to get you both on record. Here's the one we thought you would agree on, and that has to do with the CDC, which today said it's talking about maybe changing the guidelines, but not going to do anything just yet. And the question came up because earlier this week, Dr. Anthony Fauci had said he thought these states that are all dropping mask mandates were doing it for not political reasons. Here's some of what he said.
Well, Hallie, I wouldn't say it's the politics. I mean, we use the word politics. I'm not so sure it's that. I just think at the local level, there's a strong feeling of needing to get back to normality.
Kristal, we talked in our meeting today. I don't even know what the guidelines are anymore. I'm sorry, but is this why people are either confused or frustrated or just not listening anymore?
Yeah, I think it's confusing. And Rick and I, we may agree or disagree on this topic, but I still believe in the mask mandates and in the, vaccine mandates. I also believe in whatever the science says, and if governors in their states are following that science. And it appears that the numbers have dropped by 44% over the last week, so people are beginning to relax this. But I also want to caution, we relaxed this after Delta, then Omicron, came up. And now it's Omicron, and we don't know what the next variant might be that might arise. And so while it's plausible that a governor or a big city mayor may relax the mask mandates, may even relax the vaccine mandates, I want to caution us that this is still a pandemic and we're not beyond the scope of what may happen.
Well, Kristal, you bring up a good point, Rick, that allows us to jump over to you, because Dr. Fauci said these states are following the science. The question is, who's following the science? And if Dr. Fauci thinks these states that are dropping it are following the science, almost all of the states are dropping them or are close to. Even if they haven't, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to.
Well, it's still higher than it was in September. They've never followed the actual science. They've only followed the political science. And I don't think the mass Nazis are ever going to relent. This is a religious cult to them. And Pope Fauci, the fraud, it can never be wrong for them, even though he's been wrong every single step of the way throughout this entire thing. I mean, even your own polling in News Nation shows that 70% of Americans don't trust Fauci when it comes to COVID. 85% of Americans don't trust Biden when it comes to COVID. Why? Because they played politics with this from the beginning. They haven't followed the science, and people are beginning to realize that. Finally, I'm so glad that they're actually waking up to this. The only reason some of these Democrats are relenting is the polling. It's the political science. They are saying that their own internal polling says it's going to be devastating for them in the 2022 elections because of these mandates and because of all the things that they've been doing. So they're relenting because of the politics. As long as they lift their boot off the neck of Americans, I'll be happy. I don't care what their reason is.
Kristal, we've had other Democrats on who agree with Rick's point there, that this is an anchor the Democrats need to try to shed before the midterms. I think I keep going back, though, to what we're all doing and how we're all living despite the guidelines, right? If you go into a restaurant and you want to eat there, you have to put a mask on. You do for the 30 seconds you walk in, and then take it off for the hour and a half you eat. But I feel like, despite the mandates, we're doing sort of what we are okay with, or what we're comfortable with, or what we have to do wherever we go.
Well, yeah, I think Americans are doing the best they can. I think, some of the characterization that Rick just used, I wouldn't go that far. And so I think we disagree on some of those points with, calling Dr. Fauci a fraud, stating that, people don't believe in President Biden, and stating that this administration has not handled the pandemic and COVID better than the last administration. So I think that those are things that I just categorically disagree with, because I do think that President Biden has put America in a better position to handle and tackle this pandemic. And that's something that we didn't see the previous administration do. As it relates to the midterms, it will be a topic that will be, voters will be thinking about when they go to the polls. And so it's just something that we're going to have to get through.
Well, that trust is our polling. And I'll probably leave you with this, that who do people trust? Their doctor. So that at least is something that we know we can count on, and folks will continue to do as we make our way through, hopefully, to the other side of this thing soon. It's great to have you both. As always, Kristal and Rick, take care.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
The family of Bob Saget